There we go. Oh, he can't do it. Hello, hi, and welcome to this month's Dog Book Club. This month we read the book Lucky Dog Lessons, How to Train Your Dog in 7 Days by Brandon McMillan. I loved this book, and we are gonna get into all the different things that I liked and disliked about it. But right now, I am dog sitting for a puppy named Kai, and he really wants to play. So if you hear a lot of noises throughout this video, that's him barking at me so that I'll play with him. Before we dive into this book, I want to take some of the tactics and tricks that he taught in this, and I'm gonna apply it to Kai. Now, I don't have 7 days because I'm only with him for 24 hours, but I can get started on them at least. He's a smart little boy, so I'm gonna get started on it and see how these tips are. You wanna play? Whatever you want. Okay, let's talk about this book. First of all, the cover art. I love it. It is bright, it is fresh, there's a bunch of dogs, there's a cute hunky man there. Everything that you want in a book cover, to be honest. If I saw this on a bookshelf, I would definitely pick it up, so I'm gonna give this cover art a 10 out of 10. Next, let's talk about the voice that he uses throughout it. I thought it was really conversational, it was casual, it was like I was talking to a friend. It was just really easy to read. He wasn't using any big terms, and when he did, he would fully explain what they were. I thought that all of the chapters were really bite-sized and easy to read, and you could skip towards the command or the issue that your dog is having really easily. Also, I really liked that each of the steps that he used, he explained it so thoroughly, and he gave multiple different options for if something didn't necessarily work for your dog. He gave you a different option, and he just said it in a way that was so easy to follow. So for voice, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10 because I really liked it. It didn't hurt my brain to try to figure things out, but it also still wasn't too easy. It was like a really nice combination of like real good training techniques and ease of reading. Why are you so loud? Shh. He really, really wants to play. Kai, look at it. Oops, he's like literally wanting to play this entire video, so I apologize if I'm literally playing with things underneath the camera. Oh, just look at him. He is relentless. Okay, now for the content, which is the best part of this whole book. So the book is divided up into two major sections. The first one being the 7 basic commands that you need to learn. And then in the last part of the book, it's talking about different behavior issues that your dog could possibly have and how to fix that. And like I said before, I found each of the chapters to be bite-sized and easy to read, so you could skip to the part that you wanted the most. And also, I mostly read this before bed. So reading one chapter before bed, it wasn't too much of a commitment. So they were really bite-sized and easy to follow. But what made this book really as good as it is and as unique as it is the personal stories that he includes. In every single chapter, with every single issue or command that he talks about, he has a personal story with a rescue dog that he has trained or a personal client. And the one thing that I really, really like about him is that he doesn't sugarcoat things. He'll tell you when he feels like he failed or when something was very difficult for him. He gets into those kinds of stories. It's not just like stories that celebrate him as a trainer. And I find that that's something that is so rare when it comes to trainers, because oftentimes trainers will think that their way of doing it is the best way and all the other ways are wrong, and they really kind of glorify themselves. But what I really liked about him is that he was just blunt and honest about it, and that's really rare in a trainer. So I appreciated that a lot, because I feel like we all have those moments as dog owners, dog trainers, or people who just work with dogs where we feel like we're not doing something right, and I like that he acknowledged it and it made it more personable, to be honest. Going along with that, on page 28, he said something along the lines of sometimes a clean slate isn't always possible, which is so true when it comes to rescue dogs in particular. Sometimes there's something that has happened to them that has caused a certain behavior in them that is now a part of their personality. And like, yes, you can minimize things and make things easier to live with, but you can't necessarily get rid of it entirely. So I really liked that he was honest about that. Like, most trainers, they won't say that. They'll try their very best, they'll take your money, and they'll try to fix whatever it is, even though that may not necessarily be possible for that dog. So that's one of the things that I really liked about him as well, is that he was honest and blunt. In the beginning of the book, he was really talking about knowing all of the different personality traits and the different things that your dog was bred for back in the day when they were breeding dogs to do certain jobs. And those things are very important to know. And I think a lot of people don't actually do the research about what their dog was bred to do. And some of those behaviors, they're the things that we love about our dogs. But there are also some things that are a little bit of an issue as well. And that's why I think a lot of dogs get returned to shelters, is people didn't really look up what their personality could possibly be like and their different tendencies. And so he goes into that in the first part of the book, which I really like. And I think that more people need to pay attention to that, to be honest. He also says on page 17, there's a big difference between training a dog to do something that's new and unfamiliar and training a dog to do something that's against his innate behavior. You can't train them to be something that they're not. And why would you want to? Like, if you're getting a dog, you're getting it for how they are, not how you want them to be, regardless of their personality. On page 63 and throughout the whole rest of the book, he talks about the, what is it called? The double leash lock off, which is basically when you're training using 2 different leashes, and it kind of keeps your dog in one place so that you can train all of the things that you need to do. And I thought that that was brilliant. I never would have thought of that. And I think that's one of the really big takeaways of this book, is that double leash lock off technique. So definitely pay attention to that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. Probably my favorite technique used in this entire book is for digging. Oh my gosh, I thought that this was brilliant. To be honest, I've never had a dog who's had a digging problem, so I've never had to deal with this, but I just thought it was so brilliant. Essentially, the technique that he uses, and it explains this more in the book, but he essentially takes the dog's poop, collects it, and puts it into the holes that the dog has been digging, because oftentimes dogs will go back to the same hole and they kind of like treat it like it is, you know, a work of art. So by putting that in it, all of a sudden the dog doesn't like it anymore. It should leave the hole alone. And I just thought that was so brilliant. I also think it'd be so funny to sit inside of the house and watch your dog in the backyard figuring out that its holes are tainted. I think that that would just be hilarious and also kind of sad, but I love this technique. If your dog has a problem with digging, then definitely go check this out, because I think it was super useful. Also, the marking section of that, brilliant. Honestly, for me, I would probably have an issue with it if the dog was whining a lot, because my heartstrings, I don't know if I could take sitting there for 20 minutes as the dog is whining, but I can see how brilliant of a technique this is. So definitely check that out if your dog is having problems with marking. So some problems that I had with the techniques in this book. For the sit and the down, he uses the double leash, which honestly I think is a little bit overkill for most dogs. Most dogs I feel like can pick up the sit and the down quite easily, and using the 2 leashes, unless you have a really hyperactive dog, I think it's a little bit much. But I understand that he's trying to just give you all the different options when you're training this all at once, and then you figure out what works for you. Kai, get out of my bag. No, that's my bag. Also, when he's training a stay, he doesn't have a kind of release word. I mean, maybe he does. He does say good stay afterwards. I don't think of that necessarily as a release word. It's kind of more just he's rewarding the dog for staying. I don't know, I was kind of confused by that section, but I've always worked on a stay with a release word so that the dog knows exactly when they are allowed to move. So that's one thing that I'm actually quite surprised that he didn't use a release word, but of course, everyone has their different techniques, and that's totally fine. For the no command, I thought that this was great, except for the word no. So I don't know about you guys, but I say the word no like all the time in my regular life. And I feel like if I use that as a command, it would just be too confusing for the dog, because I'm saying no all the time and they wouldn't really be able to understand when the no is referring to them or when it's just like me saying no like normal. So with this command, I liked this command, but I would use a word different than no, personally. Okay, just some random thoughts that I had as I was reading the book that I just marked down. A Maltese, the breed Maltese, was bred for alerting to strangers. I had no idea. I mean, I knew that they were bred for sitting on royalty's lap, but I didn't realize that not only is it them being super cute, but also when somebody from the court would get a little bit too close to the royalty, they would bark and snap. And that's why Maltese oftentimes are big barkers nowadays. And I think that's something a lot of people, I didn't even know this, so I'm sure there's a lot of other people that didn't know it as well. And then they're so surprised that their cute little Maltese is a barker, but they're literally bred to do that. Blew my mind. Also, there's another thing that I wrote down, and that is 20% of dogs in shelters were surrendered for housebreaking troubles, which made me think, why don't we do more in the shelters to kind of train them out of that, so by the time they go to the new home that they're housebroken? Oftentimes shelters, maybe it's because we're just so busy and there's so many dogs to deal with, but there's nothing that we do to kind of train that out of them. Oftentimes in shelters, the dogs are allowed to go to the bathroom anywhere they want. So it just made me think, like, why don't we do more for house training if that high of a percentage of dogs are surrendered for that reason? Overall, I thought that this book was great. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10 because I really enjoyed it. I thought it was entertaining, but it was also helpful information, and I'm definitely taking some of these things and using them on my own dogs in the future. I definitely recommend it. I say go and get this book. If you didn't already read it, it's definitely worth it. Also, Brandon McMillan has a TV show that is super cute. It shows him working on all of the dogs, like all the stories that he has in there. He has a ranch where he'll train rescue dogs. So definitely go check that out if you haven't already. Thank you guys for joining me on this video, and I'll see you in the next one. One thing that I forgot to mention is next month's dog book club book. It is called Travels with Casey. Hold on, let me get the full name. It is called Travels with Casey, My Journey Through Our Dog Crazy Country by Benoit, Denizet-Lewis. This is, I'm excited for this book. I obviously don't have it with me because I am dog sitting and it's at my house, but this book is basically about a man who traveled with his dog and all of their adventures across America. So I'm excited about that one. It's gonna be a fun, chiller kind of one, but definitely, I'm gonna link it below for you guys. Definitely make sure you pick up your copy and we can start reading that. We're gonna be talking about it the last week of March. Okay, bye. I'll see you guys then.